Thanks for sticking with me like a true friend, Gerald. I needed a miracle, I guess. Just couldn't get one.
Hey, Arnold. You did all right, man. You tried harder than anyone else I know. All for Mr. Wynn, a guy who's alone in this country. The stuff you did is more important than a bunch of presents. It's more important than some dumb snow boots. What you did, well, that's what Christmas is all about, Arnold.
On December 12, 1974, the People's Army of Vietnam and the Viet Cong increased their offensive against U.S.-supported South Vietnam with a battle to take the town of Phuc Long near the Cambodian border. This began what would be known as the 1975 Spring Offensive, in which the Army of the Republic of Vietnam had a number of rapid and disastrous retreats that culminated in the capture of the South Vietnam capital of Saigon in April 30th, 1975, marking the end of the Vietnam War. The capture of Saigon was predicted, and in the months leading up to it, mass evacuations of both stationed American military officers and Vietnamese citizens began. This included things like Operation Baby Lift, in which over 3,000 displaced or orphaned children were flown out of the country, separating them from possible family. Altogether, approximately 125,000 US-sponsored Vietnamese refugees were evacuated during and immediately following the 1975 Spring Offensive. Vietnamese immigration in the United States increased steadily in the decades to follow, with immigrant populations increasing from 260,000 in 1980 to 614,000 in 1990, over a million by 2000. It wouldn't be until 1995 that diplomatic relations between the United States and Vietnam were normalized, following a formal announcement from President Bill Clinton on July 11, 1995. With access to Vietnamese archives, it became easier for families separated by the war to reconnect. But easier was not the same as easy, as not all archives survived. For the children taken in Operation Baby Lift, most would never be reunited with their family. Arnold's Christmas aired on December 11, 1996, the 18th episode of Season 1 of Hey Arnold, and the show's first half-hour story. The story was conceived by series creator Craig Bartlett and his fellow series developers Steve Vixton and Joe Ancelabihir. It was directed by Jamie Mitchell, who also did one of my favorite Hey Arnold stories, Pigeon Man. So you know you're in for a lovely bummer. And if you've never seen the show, that's what Hey Arnold excels at. Lovely, gorgeous, melancholic bummers. It's a couple of days before Christmas, with Arnold and his fellow 4th grade classmates dealing with the stresses of gift giving and gift getting. Arnold lives in a boarding house run by his grandparents, and this year the boarders are having a little Secret Santa, where you pull a name out of a bowl and are tasked with giving that person an anonymous gift. Arnold pulls Mr. Wynn's name, but runs into the expected nightmare of every Secret Santa. I don't really, truly know this person, certainly not well enough to give them a gift. And Mr. Wynn seems oddly quiet this holiday season. So Arnold tries to tease some information out of Mr. Wynn, what he likes, what his hobbies are, but he gets nowhere. And then Arnold learns and asks about Mr. Wynn's daughter, and Mr. Wynn finally tells his story.
Many years ago, I lived in another country, far away. I was a young man with a family, a beautiful baby girl. I called her Mai. But there was a trouble in my country. There was a war in the north, and every day the fighting was coming closer and closer. So I decided we must try to get out. We must try to find a better life. He said there was only room for one of us. Then I had to make the most difficult decision of my life. I knew I had to do the best thing for Mai. As the helicopter left, the soldier called out the name of a city. This city. He said he would bring her here.
More than 20 years have passed, and there's no guarantee that Hyunn's daughter is still in the city. And there's only one more day till Christmas. But if there's ever a time for miracles, well, 'tis the season. Hey Arnold is a uniquely melancholy children's cartoon, an animated program for kids about how the world will disappoint you, how people are weird and idiosyncratic, and how you can do everything right and still fail. It's also a show where wearing fruit costumes for a school play could get you in deep with the mob, so it's still plenty goofy, but it's not afraid to represent life's complexities. The nearest thing you can compare Hey Arnold to is perhaps Charles Schulz's Peanuts, a work that is quite closely associated with Christmas. And in fact, A Charlie Brown Christmas and Arnold's Christmas share some similar ideas. Both are less about celebrating Christmas and more about how we feel about celebrating Christmas. How Christmas can be both a wonderful time of the year and an incredibly stressful time of familial and societal expectations that messes with your anxiety. And it is a time of debated meaning.
Christmas is about giving and sharing, family and friends, holiday spirit.
Oh, come off your high horse, sister. Christmas is about presents. It's about getting as much stuff as you can possibly get. It's about money and flash. It's about shopping like a barbarian.
Both stories put our protagonists on a main quest that they seemingly fail at, though finding a Christmas tree for the school play feels a bit more small potatoes compared to tracking down your neighbor's daughter with a 20-year cold trail 16 hours before Christmas. Arnold, along with his best friend Gerald, approaches the city's Federal Office of Information in hopes of finding answers, only to find the government workers there slightly drunk and occupied with the office's Christmas party. The one exception is Mr. Bailey, an overworked archivist who has no time for these kids. He has so much work to do, and on top of that, he still has a ton of last-minute Christmas shopping. And even if he could spare a moment, the challenge here is insurmountable. Did the daughter even make it to the United States, let alone this specific city? Did she move at any point in the last 20 years? Was she adopted? Did she change her name or have it changed by her legal guardians? And your only hope of finding her is a couple of hours of work from this frustrated employee spinning way too many plates in the air during the most stressful time of the year? This is going to take a Christmas miracle. But 'tis the season.
Mister, I'd do anything to get Mr. Wynn and his daughter together. I'll do your shopping. You can trust me. I'll come back, no matter what.
Okay, you got yourself a deal.
However, getting everything on Mr. Bailey's list is impossible, because one of the items is a pair of Nancy Spumoni signature snow boots, the hot ticket item of the year, the Tickle Me Elmo of shoes. Every store has been sold out for months. Arnold fails. I mean, actually, this is totally Mr. Bailey's fault for waiting till the last minute for shopping, but Arnold can't help but take it as a personal failure. Charlie Brown and Arnold are both characters with a surprisingly rich internal life. Surprising because of its source material, but here's how they differ. Charlie Brown struggles with apathy, while Arnold struggles with empathy. He cares about other people. He takes the time to really get to know them and attempt to understand them. And then he tries to help them, oftentimes beyond his means. Sometimes it turns out well. Sometimes it's a zero-sum game. And sometimes things take a turn for the worse. That doesn't mean Arnold was wrong for trying, wrong for caring, but there's only so much he can do on his own. Circling the story is Helga, a girl who is quite mean to Arnold in person, but secretly pines for him when he's not around. By happenstance, she learns what Arnold is up to, and she learns her parents bought her a pair of those popular snow boots. Helga is conflicted, and this conflict goes beyond a cartoonishly basic, greedily keep the luxury item or be a saint and give it up. We see through the series that Helga's life is pretty miserable. Her dad is an asshole, her mother is an alcoholic, her perfect older sister sets their parents' standards way too high. Getting these snow boots is a rare moment of actual, pure happiness for Helga, which makes it all the more meaningful when she decides to give them up.
Look into your heart, and we've got a choice here. Either you and I work all night to find a certain lost daughter, or you can leave now. But if you leave now, that little football-headed kid will never believe in miracles again.
Unlike Peanuts or contemporary slice-of-life cartoons like Doug, Hey Arnold grounds itself in our real world and history. The Vietnam War isn't specifically named, it's not really aiming to be educational, and instead treats the events the way children of that time would perceive them, how I perceived them at the time. When I was 7, 8, 9, I knew there was this thing called the Vietnam War that happened before I was born. I knew my parents were younger when it happened, and I even kinda got the sense that it wasn't a popular war. But I didn't know what it was about. I didn't know the human cost it had. It was just something from that vague period predating my existence. But the imagery the episode provides, the timeline it presents, down to the fact that Mr. Nguyen couldn't come to the States for 20 years until the 1995 normalization, speaks to an authenticity to our real world, even down to the casting. Mr. Nguyen's voice actor, Baoen Coleman, sorry if I mispronounced that, is himself a Vietnamese immigrant who witnessed the fall of Saigon firsthand. It is a story entrenched in real history, even if it's presented in a simplified manner for a young audience. And because of that, Arnold's Christmas feels prescriptive, or at least suggestive. It's presenting our world, so maybe this is how we should be living in it. By reaching out to people, by trying to understand other people. And if those people need help, trying to help them. Not for reward, not for recognition, but because it's the good thing to do. I can get behind that. After a year like this, I can definitely get behind that. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Arnold.